It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome to The New Next, a podcast that addresses current events and how they will impact the future. Honestly, those things to me don't bother me as much as the daily things that they get away with that we rarely hear about because they get away with it.
What do you mean?
Things like getting tickets and just regular day-to-day stuff that they're automatically exempt from just because they're known.
Oh, okay. That's interesting because I was reading, let's see, about English PM lockdowns. I can't remember his name. So when Boris Johnson announced lockdowns, where did I read this? Look, I'm looking on BBC right now. All that stuff was designed primarily by this one guy. And what they're doing right now is they're going back into their WhatsApp messages. There's 100,000 WhatsApp messages sent between these people. Okay. So Health Secretary Matt Hancock was the guy that really designed COVID lockdowns. And I watched something the other day where he's basically saying that doubling down on that's the right way to go is locking down. But people are going back in their COVID inquiry right now, going back through 100,000 plus WhatsApp messages between these people. And there's a lot of stuff in there about basically doing side deals for medical treatment and stuff for politically connected people. And it's very interesting. Like the UK is really built around class, I would say.
Okay.
You have basically a king and the subjects, right? But you also have the distinction between London proper and then the city of London. And there's a bunch of legal structures that have actual class structure built into society and not in an overtly way. But I don't know. This little ranting here, but it's interesting to see how this stuff works. And historically, me as someone that's had more access to these people has never tried to leverage that for my own personal gain. And it's really hard. COVID's been a great example of me seeing firsthand how distinct the services you get are whether or not you're leveraging your connections and literally whether or not you pay people money. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, even COVID, it's better than it's a better example than some of the other things, but it's just if you're considered someone important, maybe it's not even so much rich, but rich seems to go along with this. If you're someone important or that is seen as someone that's important, you're going to get better treatment than someone who's not seen in that same way.
Well, yeah.
And unfortunately, there's just a consistency. It's like people know that the people in Nichols Hills, for example, in Oklahoma, are going to get a special treatment.
Do you want me to use personal examples here?
If you want to.
Yeah. You've been aware of my experience of dealing with a short-term rental next door, one on Airbnb, and also dealing with the political aspects around that. And so basically the thing is around Airbnb or around right before COVID started, my neighbor had been running next door for a long time. And she was, I believe, from Qatar. I didn't really have much interaction with her, but she had lived there for 7 years. And I think she decided to move back to Qatar or something. But it's a 6,000 square foot house, maybe, with a giant pool, like a huge house. And that December in 2009, there was a big fight in the backyard. So I called the police, and the police came out, and I was like, I have no clues who's here. This house has been empty for months. And all of a sudden there's just a party there. And I went online and it was listed on Airbnb to host for events and stuff like that. I've never had any interaction with the person that actually owns it. So I was on the phone with the police, and I was sitting on my other side of the fence telling these people to go out to take it out to the road. I don't know who they are, but children live all around here. And this isn't a place to be like threatening and fighting and stuff like that. So I sat on the second level of my home and watched these people gang beat this guy in the street, just beat the shit out of him, throw him in a car where the guy looked like he was pretty much dead. And then they sped off, and the cops got there, and they, I guess, confronted the owner, and the owner said that nothing had happened. So when I heard someone creeping around in my backyard, opening my gate and stuff later in the night, I called the police because my dogs were freaking out. They accused me of making all of it up and threatened to arrest me.
The police accused you of that?
Yeah, they implied that I don't know the exact words, but it was basically like filing a false police report is a crime and there's penalties for it. And I followed up later and made a formal complaint to the police chief, David Tauscher at the time. And somehow I got wrapped up in all this defund the police bullshit. It's 4 years later, and I've never received a response to my zoning violation complaints on this. But it's been crazy. Like, there was one time that I was just sitting in the front gardening, and this guy, drunk or on drugs, like a college student, started yelling at me. I had my headphones off, and I turn around, and this guy like is trying to fight me. And I ran to my house. I'm calling the police, and this guy is like hounding me like an animal. And he's this little guy. I'd kick the shit out of him, literally. And he's just coming at me. I have no clue what's going on. So I call the police. This is all on video. I have a ring at this point because there's been so many incidents there.
Wow.
And the police refused to investigate it. The city attorney here is an ideologue, the person that gets to make final decision on this stuff. For years, it's been so crazy. But the neighbor even admitted faked a hate crime.
What?
She faked a hate crime, wrote about it in a letter about how we had created a hate crime against her Airbnb guests, and then admitted in the letter to everything that we were accusing her of doing illegally, and mailed it to our fucking neighbors. So it was fucking deranged, man. And yeah. I copy this. It admits to everything, but it also threatens us and says that she's had her police friends basically watching us, essentially. And I've caught the cops multiple times trying to hop my fence. Like, I was sitting out on the side of my fence, or side of my house where I have the watering thing for my garden, and look over and I see this guy climbing up my fence, leaning over, about to hop over it. and I say something and I complain and the police don't do anything. And it's been absolutely crazy. But I've been harassed by the police. I made another complaint to the mayor a couple weeks ago, and instead of addressing my complaint, the mayor sent two police officers over to my house to harass me. I didn't answer the door, so I called the state trooper, or I called the police later, and they come to my house all the time, man. Like, it's really messed up. I don't do anything. I don't know why the cops are here,
Right.
and they never come when I need them. And so it's been a really troubling thing where I've gotten caught between this defund the police bullshit, and in both sides were just bickering, and both sides pretended to help me at different times. Like, so many people try to pretend to help me because they thought that they could use my situation to benefit them. And literally I'm literally, the stuff that I've had to like argue legally with these people about, these are bar appointed lawyers,
Yeah.
is in the law, or in basically what do they call it, the charter that governs the city, where this Airbnb ordinance is tied to. The ordinance for Airbnb and short-term rentals says that you're not allowed to rent it out for events and parties. I would be like, here's what the listing says, that they rent it out for events and parties. And then they said that they're having a birthday party right there. There's 20 cars. And I'm like, and then when one people on the city council, like the new person, will be like, that makes sense. That's obviously a party. And then I never hear back from anybody again. And there's like a gag order or something on this. But it got to the point where I had to file civil rights violations with the Department of Justice on it. And that's the only thing that stopped the police from coming around and harassing me. And so it's interesting because it's all in fucking writing for 4 years. And it's sometimes you really have to put your effort, you have to follow the system along according how it is. But really, this whole tangent started about talking about how people utilize the system for their benefit. My next door neighbor is a donor for the police department and also has a lot of friends there, and has stated that publicly multiple times, and has also used that to weaponize the local police to threaten and intimidate me. And nobody's ever even given me a response to a zoning violation complaint, which is required by law. But having people like literally try to attack you on your property, and you report it, send them videos of them doing it, and the police refuse to investigate. It's fucked up, man. I don't really know what to say about it, but like, America is a very interesting place, and I've benefited a lot of times from privilege, and I've also been the outsider at times too. Like, I've personally had the shit beat out of me by the police before.
Really?
Yeah. And I had one of my best friends got pulled over by a DUI, which he illegally did, and he takes responsibility for that. But he said, I know my law, or I know the law, and I'm calling my lawyer, and I'm going to wait for him before I respond to you further. So the cop pulled his hand into the car, opened the door, and threw him out onto I-5, where he was almost hit by passing traffic. So all of this was caught on camera, and his DUI was dismissed. And one of my friends was beat mercilessly in front of the police in high school to the point where my sweatshirt, my Washington State white sweatshirt, was fully red in his blood. And the police watched it, and then they watched me drag his pretty much lifeless body across the parking lot and throw him in my friend's car where they could take him to the hospital. And at the same time, like, one of my friend's dads was assistant chief of police. And it's this quandary where you've really seen some bad shit go down when people didn't know who you were. You didn't have that benefit. Yeah. But there were other times where people knew who I was, and in Seattle my name means something, and I got out of stuff where a lot of people wouldn't.
If you would like to learn more about the New Next podcast, find us at thenewNextPodcast.com, where you can suggest a topic you would like for us to cover. If you enjoyed what you heard, share the podcast, tell a friend about it, or rate us with 5 stars.